Welcome to the Word Nest, where stories take flight. I'm one of your hosts, Mariah, and I'm here with my co-host, Amelia. And in today's quick and dirty mini-sode, we're going to give you the rundown on everything italics. So, Amelia, why don't you kick us off?
Sorry, that was me doing like an italic pose.
I loved it.
Thank you. All right, so the first thing, since this is just a quick and dirty, we're going to be pretty quick. And so, italics should be used sparingly for 1. Emphasis. For example, she took a deep breath. She was ready. Italicized ready. 2. To add deeper meaning or implication. I never said she stole the money versus I never said she stole the money. 3. Thoughts without a dialogue tag. I'm not going to give you an example of that one. I think you guys can figure that out. And 4. Specialized uses like scientific names. So, for example, say you want to talk about a red fox and you've got a scientist who's saying that's a vulpes vulpes, and I'm sorry for my fuck-ass pronunciation. Anyway, you would put vulpes vulpes in italics. Or if you're discussing a word as a word, such as if you're saying the word love can have different connotations depending on the context. I just put it in air quotes. Actually, Mariah, what would you say about putting that in quotes instead of italics?
Generally, you would not put it in quotes.
Interesting.
It would be in italics.
So there you have it. Yeah. Even editors learn things sometimes about editing.
So when it comes to italics, there are a few times that you should never use them. Number 1, when you have foreign words in your manuscript. Now, this is for both fiction and nonfiction. A lot of people might be surprised by this. It used to be standard to italicize foreign language. It is changing in the industry. Many publishers and smaller outlets are turning away from that. Number 2, do not italicize flashbacks or dream sequences. We want them just in standard Roman. Roman just means unitalicized. And number 3, if you have really long pieces of inserted text, like say you have an email or like a handwritten letter or a podcast clip, you want those to be in the standard Roman, not italicized.
And I have some things in that I would like to come back to after I do the final section, which is things you should consider. 1, the more you use italics, the less effect it will have. Actually, I split this into 1 and 2, but they're really sort of two sides of the same coin. They're like 1A and 1B. Because 1B is think about what you can do instead of using italics. So a lot of things you may feel in your heart need emphasis of italics, but you've already done the work to show that emphasis in other places. So this is a good jumping off point, I guess, for us just chatting about italics for a minute. So my first question for you, Mariah, is, so I want to go back to talking about flashbacks and long pieces within where your gut instinct might be to separate it with italics. What would you suggest doing instead?
I think that generally we use just regular formatting. So whether it's like a page break, the top of the letter or the email might look like it's been typed. It's in a different font maybe than the rest of the body text. Sometimes images, depending on what kind of thing you're writing, like an image of an email may be just like put into the book. But the thing about italics is again, like Amelia said, the more you use it, the less emphasis it has. So if you have huge chunks of it, it's, number 1, feels immature, and number 2, takes the reader out of the reading experience because it's so much and so different that it's jarring.
See, I thought you were going to give a simple answer, which is the one that I was thinking of, but you didn't actually say it at all, which was using a block quote.
Well, that's formatting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And especially if you're writing nonfiction, I think block quote is pretty standard if it's going to be a long piece of text.
Well, and so in another episode, we'll probably get into the nitty-gritty of flashbacks and dream sequences. But if you're going to use them, you tend to, especially a dream sequence, you want that to be almost like a surprise at the end, and then she woke up, or something like that.
No.
See, in another episode, I'll discuss how that can be effective. But if you're going to utilize it in that way, having it all in italics tells the reader up front that it's a dream.
Also, it's just, like, exhausting to read. But I do have to say, I feel like I have to say I can't just, like, let this episode publish without saying, like, don't gotcha your readers. Don't make them read so much and then be like, surprise, it was all a dream. There should be clues that it was a dream.
Yeah.
And also, just in general, a long dream sequence could be exhausting to read. So my advice is usually don't surprise your readers with it being a dream. If you were going to do that, make the dream like a paragraph. Make it short.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Dream
keep
sequences should always be short, in my opinion.
Yes, I agree. That said, there's no such thing as always and never
Yeah.
in pretty much anything. But we can talk about... We'll do another minisode on, like, how to follow writing advice. So, yeah.
And I do also just want to go back to discussing the foreign words thing. So
Yes, please
the
do.
reason why we are moving away from that is because, and this isn't like there are many reasons why language evolves and change, and grammar evolves and changes with it, right? But I think one of the biggest reasons that we're considering as an industry is that, like, when you italicize something like that, you're othering it, right? Like, it is somehow, like, alienated from the rest of the text. But if you are using it in this way, it is just part of your text. It's part of your storytelling. So there is no reason to other it other than, like racist undertones or, like, other things that I feel like most writers want to avoid.
And, like, it's not like your reader, generally speaking, is suddenly going to be confused about the fact that it's in another language.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to look at... I'm not even going to attempt to give an example because we were just talking about before we started filming that, like, the anxiety of pronouncing things in front of people is just overwhelming.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm not going to try to pronounce anything. But no one's going to be reading in English or whatever language you're writing in and come across a word that's not in that language and just be like, oh my god, this wasn't in italics, I'm so confused. And if they are, then they're just being pedantic.
Well, and, like, something else that I have, like, really seen this be true is, like, I've been reading a lot of books in which, both the characters and or the author are bilingual, or the stories are set, like, I've been reading historical fiction set in Mexico. We can assume that those characters are always speaking Spanish, but the story is being told to me as an English reader, right? You know, in the 1500s in Mexico, they're probably not, like, speaking English to each other, if at least not in the context of this story. So it would be silly to have every time they would have Spanish language in the novel, it would be silly to italicize it because we are assuming that most of the time they are actually speaking Spanish.
Yes.
So these are all interesting little tidbits. I think maybe in a future episode we'll discuss different changes in language. I think especially considering the digital age in which we live and the way that different generations utilize language. I think that's going to come into play more and more through the next couple of years in publishing.
I agree. Sorry, I'm just, like, we're filming in the middle of the day and, like, there's so many sounds around me and I just keep looking away and, like, alarm. But yeah, I agree with everything you said and my thoughts exactly. And I had one more thing I wanted to mention before we wrap up this little quick and dirty minisode, and that is when I was talking about, or we talk about using italics for emphasis and seeing if there's anything else you can do. One thing that I like to think about when I'm coaching people to write and when I'm writing myself is, like, what I call first draft words. So this is not really a first draft word so much as it is a first draft technique. Sometimes you have to do things in your first draft to carry on.
Yeah.
biggest piece of writing advice I give, which feels very obvious but actually is not, is if it gets you to write, do it. If it does not get you to write, don't do it. And so if you are writing and you're looking at your sentence and you're like, this word has got to be emphasized with italics or I cannot move on with my life, do it. Emphasize it with italics. You might find when you come back in your second draft and are editing it that you don't need it anymore. And I would interrogate every single use of italics when you come back and edit. But you don't need to have a perfectly clean first draft. You can use adverbs, you can use adjectives, you can use words that don't make sense. Anything that gets you to keep going.
And you can even use placeholders in your text. You know,
I do that all the time.
Me too. If you can't think of a word, just have like a specific word that you put in all caps there, and then you can always do a find and replace later.
Yes. I also, if it's not like a find and replace situation, I will put it in brackets and all caps so that when I'm reading through, I'm like, oh, that's obnoxious that you forgot to do something there. One time I was sending a chapter to a beta reader and I completely forgot that I did that. And so she got a sentence that ended in just 10 question marks, and she was like, what does this mean?
Only I know.
I was like, great question. You can say.
All right. Well, I think that's it for today's episode. As always, guys, please go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe wherever you're watching or listening to us from.
Tell us your opinion on italics.
Yeah.
Or tell us what else you want really quick advice on.
Absolutely. And we will see you back for our next full episode. Bye.
Bye.